So without needing the cloud, you're able to focus on your local storage, focus on having your own copy of things outside of that other ecosystem. And I think that's really Mylio's superpower. The cloud is optional. You can also choose in Mylio to store your stuff in the cloud for other reasons. It's a great option, but it's not required. And so that to me solves a lot of problems that people have that they sometimes don't even realize is possible to solve, is being able to have that local connection, being able to download to that hard drive that you have. So yes, there are additional steps involved. But if you're interested in solving that problem, you're going to have to take additional steps.
Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with Angela Andrieux. Angela is a phenomenal photographer, and she also is going to take us through how we take care of travel photos and what exactly we should be doing. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Angela, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and talking about two of my favorite things, which are photos and travel.
Brilliant. I know this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Okay, so let's start with what makes travel photos uniquely hard to organize as compared to everyday shots? Because I think today we use our phone mostly for taking photos. So, what's the difference?
So I think actually it's for me, it's the other way around. Keeping my everyday shots organized is a little harder for me than my travel shots. So my travel usually is a confined time period. I can say I went to this place for this 2 weeks, and I know that's all those photos. I can either put them into folders by day, or I can even put them in one folder for that entire trip. To me, that's the simpler way to organize things. The day-to-day stuff is where things can get really confusing and just jumbled because we take pictures of important moments. We take pictures of our food. We take pictures of where we parked and ideas for holiday gifts when we're walking through the big box store and things like that. So we have all of those jumbles of pictures then mixed in our camera rolls with all of those holiday photos. So keeping those organized separately or in the same library, but easy to find. Finding the holiday pictures, the travel pictures to me are so much easier than finding those other kind of random pictures because there's fewer of them and so they get scattered. So for me, it's a little bit different. But when it comes to your travel photography specifically, depending on what platform you're using to organize, I use a program called Mylio Photos. But if you're using Google, you're using Apple, or something else entirely, use
How
whatever
do you spell
mechanism.
it? How do you spell it?
Mylio is Mylio.
Okay.
But you want to group your photos together by, I like to use dates. You can use it by trip. So if your trip is a defined period of time, you can say August 1 through 15, I was in Spain, wherever you go, whatever it is you're doing, and have a folder or an album or whatever grouping that your program that you're using uses for that. And that makes that much, much simpler. You can then take everything by date, put it into that container, and then that's easy to find. You can generally then search whatever platform you're using by where you were. So organizing those is simple. It's those day-to-day ones where things can get a little bit more messy because we have so many of them and they're scattered across everything. Keeping those organized, I like to keep them backed up. I like to have a ritual of cleaning up the unnecessary stuff. So when you take a screenshot or you're taking a picture of where you parked or something that was you needed that momentary reminder, but it's not something you need to keep long term, delete those. Get rid of them. Have a ritual where every so often, a week, every month, every quarter, whatever works for you, go through the most recent pictures and clean out the things that you don't need. And I think that's going to be a really good, attainable solution for most people.
So, how frequently do you clean up your photos? Clearly, I understand that it makes a lot of sense to have, because travel is something which is so precious, the experience. And
Mhm.
if you are, like you're saying, if you put them into folders, whether it's date-wise, location, obviously you need to have the country or the city or wherever you've been to as the location. Revisiting and to be able to tell a story when you need to through those photos that have been obviously chronicled then. I think that
Right.
logically makes a lot of sense. But in terms of your day-to-day shots that we all take, if you're walking down the street and if you see, wow, this tree looks gorgeous, and you just take a photo of it and then you forget about it. Or,
Mhm.
as you rightly said, screenshots of different things. How frequently do you, I know you mentioned once a week or once a month or whatever, but what is your habit? How frequently do you do it?
So, full disclosure, it's the whole the shoemakers kids have no shoes kind of thing. I don't have a regular schedule that I follow. It's usually when I start to see those things build up and I'm sitting on the sofa, or maybe I'm waiting for an appointment somewhere and I open up my phone and I go, "Oh, there's some junk in here." And I start clearing it out. So it's usually when I have those small pockets of time that I do it. But for somebody who's not in the habit of doing that for themselves, setting that calendar reminder for that period of time, once a month, once a quarter, whatever it is that you can wrap your head around, can make that a little bit easier and more attainable to get to. But for myself, it's just something that I naturally am always in my photos because that's my work. So I'm always looking through them, I'm always doing stuff. So when I find something that doesn't need to be there, I get rid of it. And then going back to what you were saying earlier about storytelling with your photos with your trips. So just putting them into a folder or an album or whatever in the different platform you're using, that's a great first step. But to get to the point where you can tell the story, if you have 1,000 photos, other than, us, we might not, nobody wants to look through 1,000 photos.
Yeah.
You want to cull it down to the best and the ones that are the most important for that story you're trying to tell. So my process when I bring in a new set of images is I go through and I do first off, so the platform that I use, my Leo Photos, this works for things like Lightroom, Camera Raw Bridge, all these different programs, is they have flags and stars. My first pass through, I'll do flags and I'll do pick flags and reject flags. Pick flags are going to be things that I want to give more attention to. Ooh, I like that picture. I want to edit that. Helps tells my story. I want to possibly use that for something more. Reject flags are going to be the things that like, oh, I accidentally took a picture of the ground. That one's blurry but beyond all recognition. Things that I know I will never use because they're just the junk shots. Now, there's going to be a lot of stuff in between that doesn't get any attention because they're for my memories. There are other options that maybe I'll want to look at again later, but I'm going to do that first pass and find those best. And those worst ones, I'm going to go ahead and delete. So I'll mark them as rejects and then I delete them. They're gone. Then I'll take all of them, I'll filter to find everything that I flagged. So all of those ones that I marked as wanting to do something more with, I'll filter to those. Then I'll start going through and I'll do any editing that I want to do. I'll add metadata to them if they need it, if they need a title, a caption, if I want to add additional keywords. A lot of programs out there use AI to help with searching, but there's probably going to be specific words that you associate with something that the AI is not going to understand or know. So adding your own keywords, not a lot of them, but just enough to fuel that search for later, I think helps. Once I've done that pass through of editing and adding some of that information, that's when I go through and I do star ratings. And the star ratings, I don't bother with 1 and 2 stars. If it's a 1 and 2 stars, it's really probably not worth my time. So I don't do that. Threes, fours, and fives, for me, you give them each one a job. So my 3 stars, those are my memory pictures. I might share them on social media, but I probably wouldn't put them on my website. I probably wouldn't put them on my blog, but they're good background. They're good for the story. 4 stars are going to be, yeah, these are pretty good shots. They're probably going to make it onto my blog and whatever albums I'm sharing, things like that. And then those 5 star ones, those are the best of the best. Those are the ones that are going to make it into my photography portfolio and probably ones that I'll enter in competitions and things like that. So that's where I go from those. So it's a kind of graduated thing. So you're not having to, you only really deal with all of the pictures once,
Yeah.
and then you further narrow it down to those best ones. And those are the ones that you share, that you put together to tell that story of your trip.
Okay, yeah. So that's how you categorize your photos.
Yep.
Now, I want to ask you about video clips.
Yep.
So, what are some of the tips that you may have where pairing your photographs or anyone's photographs with their video clips, what is a logical way to do it so that there is like a flow when it comes to telling a story?
That's an excellent question. So most of the video clips that I do are going to be probably from my iPhone, whereas my most of my pictures, I'm going to have a mix of iPhone and from my big camera. With my Leo photos, I bring them all into one library and then they're sorted by date. So when I go into the all photos view or I look at a specific date, every bit of content that I have from that date, whether it's video or still photography, is going to be in one area. And I can do that same rating and star process with those. And that way I can whittle down to that very precise story that I want to tell and then share those from there. So I treat my video clips very much like I treat my photos in that same process I just described.
Okay, interesting. What happens if your phone gets stolen? And then you're on a trip and it's like day two, day three, and woof, your phone is gone. Especially if you're in Barcelona, you better beware. How do you minimize loss if you
Mhm.
planned ahead versus if you did not?
Backup, backup, backup. I'm
Yeah.
very paranoid about those kinds of things because I have had data loss. Luckily, I've never had my phone stolen specifically, but I've talked to a lot of people who have. The way to minimize losing those memories, those images, those moments that you captured is to have a regular backup process. So the first kind of line there is most people have an iCloud subscription. Hopefully, they're paying for additional storage. As long as they've got connectivity, to some extent, those things are going to be backing up in the background. But that's not a fail-safe, right? We want to have a copy of our stuff that's separate from that cloud service. So I like to go by the 3-2-1 backup rule, where you have three copies of your media on at least two different types of devices with one of them offsite. So that offsite version is your iCloud, your Google Photos, or whatever other cloud service you're using to keep your stuff offsite, which is great. But when you're in an area with limited connectivity, maybe you're traveling, you don't have an international data plan or something like that, you need to make sure you're backing up locally as well. So with MyLeo Photos, we've got a really cool tool in there where if you have a USB-C capable phone or tablet that you're traveling with, you can actually plug that into your phone and MyLeo will sync your pictures that you've taken to that phone or to that external drive rather.
Device. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that way, if your phone gets stolen, you have maybe from the night before, you set a ritual every night that you're traveling, plug that drive into your phone, get a backup, and at least everything from that day before is on that little drive. And if your phone is in your purse or your backpack, you keep that little drive in another place. So that way they're not together.
Together.
And
Yeah. So
if one gets lost,
yeah,
hopefully you still have the other.
you definitely have a backup. Okay. Families. This is not obviously professional photographers, families who travel together or, and say three members of a family take three different sets of photos and then they want to swap and exchange. And then sometimes, or rather a lot of times, the photos get duplicated. Oh, what is a sensible way of preventing that from happening?
So there's several different ways a family can go about this. It depends on how integrated they want their stuff to be. If they want to have three separate libraries and they only share specific pictures with each other, or they want to have one place where everything goes and then they can sort it out later. So that's going to determine how they go forward. But with My Leo Photos, we have family plans. And
Um,
this allows up to five people to be on one account and all be putting their stuff into the same media library. And you can have permissions for this person can only see this person can't delete anything. You can set up some of those permissions, which is really nice. And that allows everybody to get everything into one place. From there, after the trip or periodically through the trip, you can go through that library together and be like, okay, which ones do we want to keep? And do that same process we talked about before. Now, as far as duplicates go, I think what you were saying with duplicates is two people capturing nearly the same image, right?
yeah.
So there's two different kinds of duplicate removal tools out there. The one that Mylio Photos has is a tool that's going to find exact duplicates. So that's not really going to help you there. And then there's a tool in Mylio called Declutter where it groups things based on timestamps. So if the timestamps are really close to on these, you could group them together and then pick which one you want to keep because they are similar in that fashion. There are other third-party tools out there that will find things that are visually similar. So Mylio doesn't have that, but there are tools out there to help you find visually similar things in a group of images. If you want to get that granular, that's something that you can do, I would say, after your trip. But most of the time, two people, even they're photographing the same thing, they're going to see it through two different personal lenses, through their own experiences. And there's going to be those shifts in perspective. So most of the time, I would say those should probably remain as unique images, but every family is going to be a little bit different in how they want to handle that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense because you're right. Actually, you're absolutely right. It could be exactly the same spot, but the perspective is different. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, people have in a family, for example, or friends traveling together, someone will have an Android, someone has an iPhone. And so how do you like without creating two separate ecosystems, how do the users take advantage and put things together rather than having two separate ecosystems?
Yeah, so that's one of the things where Mylio really comes through and can help with this because it is cross-platform. If you are just an Apple person and you use or Apple Photos and that's your ecosystem you're in, trying to integrate stuff in from somebody's Android account, unless they just text you random images and then you download them to your account, like that's just it's not going to work. You can make it work, but it's not a great experience. Same going the other direction. If somebody is on Google Photos and you want to have everything from your iPhone going to Google Photos, it's not a very seamless experience. So what Mylio can do is if those two people are on the same Mylio account, they can be signed in on both of their phones and Mylio will import their camera roll or media library from either one and put them into one library. And then you can sort them based on what device they came from. So you can see, okay, here's all the Android photos, here's all the ones from the iPhone, or you can view them all together. It's up to you.
What are some of the other interesting things that Mylio actually does in terms of logistics, in terms of sorting out? You've mentioned a lot, but are there any other unique or specific actions that Mylio can actually take and help you so that the process gets a little less because a lot of people are not one, they may not be savvy, and two, they may not have the patience. So, how effectively does Mylio actually enable people to do things in a faster, more efficient manner?
That's a very good question as well. So as with anything where when you add another application, it does add additional steps, right? So let's say you connect these two devices, this Android phone and this iPhone, both to the same Mylio account. In order for the pictures to transfer from those camera rolls, those phones need to open up Mylio photos on their phones and let them sync together. Now, one of the things that's really cool about Mylio is Mylio does not by default store your stuff in the cloud. It is what we call, what's the word I'm looking for? Just spaced out of my head. It doesn't need the cloud to work. So your devices talk directly to each other. So it can be two devices on the same count, they talk to each other. And it creates that secure connection from our servers and then they talk directly. So without needing the cloud, you're able to focus on your local storage, focus on having your own copy of things outside of that other ecosystem. And I think that's really Mylio's superpower. The cloud is optional. You can also choose in Mylio to store your stuff in the cloud for other reasons. It's a great option, but it's not required. And so that to me solves a lot of problems that people have that they sometimes don't even realize is possible to solve is being able to have that local connection, being able to download to that hard drive that you have. So yes, there are additional steps involved. But if you're interested in solving that problem, you're going to have to take additional steps. We try to make it as easy as possible with a Mylio Photos Plus subscription. You get to start out for an individual plan, you get a 40-minute one-on-one call with one of our experts. So you get personal handholding from the beginning to teach you the basics of using the app. If you decide you want to get a family plan or a team plan to have multiple people working on the same library, we also provide training to each one of those people who wants to be on that and help you get those set up and help those permissions configure because Not everybody out there is very tech savvy, and
Correct.
people just want something that's going to work. So we will work with you to make sure that this will meet the solution that you need and it's accomplishing the goal that you're setting out to do. And we try to make it as easy as possible. But yes, it is additional steps beyond just tapping to take the picture on your phone. Like you do have to do a few extra things.
Yeah, and I think people who really want to preserve their photos for memory or for whatever other purpose they may want to be using them for, it's important to be able to take those steps so that they are able to, in the long run, still have those photos like a few years later as well, if they want to reflect or if they want to go back for some reason, they're still
Yes.
there. Yeah. So then, if those additional steps have to be taken just that one time, I think it makes sense for them to do it.
I
Okay.
agree. Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
a matter of having the right expectation when you go into something like this, that it's not going to be an immediate, like, it's just
Yeah.
done for you. There is input that you have to give it in order to make things function properly, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. I agree. I completely agree. And those who are listening or watching, I'm sure and the ones who enjoy travel as well as photography, I think they will definitely pick up the benefits that Mileo has to offer. So I'm pretty certain about that. Okay, I would like to ask you one purchase under $50 that actually improves your photo workflow. What would that be as an expert? What would you recommend?
Let's see, one piece under $50. That's tough. Ooh, you stumped me there. The one thing that's coming to mind is for travel specifically, a USB-C
Okay.
for, so the one I have, I think it's a Belkin. I could be wrong on that, but it's a 4 point. So it has 4 ports on it for your USB-C, and then it's a USB-C connector. And I connect that to my phone. I can connect that to my iPad. I can come home and I can connect it to my laptop. And I want to say it was around $40. And it's just a very helpful thing to have. So when I'm, say, traveling and I've got just my iPad with me and I want to connect my iPad to power, and I want to connect a card reader so I can pull in pictures from my camera, and I want to connect that little SSD drive that I travel with. I can connect all of those at once to my iPad. So my iPad's getting power, it's charging, plus it's able to back things up, it's able to import new pictures. And I would say that's probably going to be one of the most helpful things that I've purchased for that price range.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Angela, what kind of travel do you normally do? Because at the start of our conversation, you did say that travel and photography are your two most favorite things to do. So, what kind of travel do you enjoy doing? And is there one place that holds like a really special part in your heart when it comes to your photographs?
Yeah, okay, so lots to unpack there. So, the type of travel that I most frequently do is going to be road trips around California, oftentimes hinging off of visiting various family members. So, I live in Southern California. I have some family lives here. My parents live about 6 hours north. I have family that lives in Arizona, and we have family that lives up in Northern California. So, we go and visit family quite frequently. We also take weekend trips to go visit other places that are within driving distance. That's the most frequent. When I'm lucky, I get to get on a plane and go somewhere fun. That's a little bit less often, but I've got two big trips coming up here in the near future. One, I'm going to be going and spending a week up in the Eastern Sierras in California. It's going to be late summer, early fall time period. So I'm going to go up there. I'm going to go photograph Bodie, which is a ghost town, and they're going to be open at night, which is going to be cool. So I get to stay out there until about 10 p.m., maybe do some night photography, some light paintings, and things like that, and just really enjoy being up in the mountains and exploring that area. It's one of my favorite places. I have lots of favorite places though. And then longer trips, I actually am going to be going to Scotland here in a couple of months. And I'm super looking forward to that. It's going to be the first time I'm traveling internationally in a very long time. It's life happens and just stuff kept getting put off and put off. And we finally booked our trip. I'm going with my mom. My mom is my favorite travel buddy. She's also a photographer, so we travel really well together. And we've taken other like long road trips around California and up the California coast and different places. So we're going to be traveling to Europe, and that's going to be amazing. As far as someplace that is really near and dear to my heart, especially where photography is concerned, I'm going to have to say Sicily. So my husband is retired US military. We were stationed in Sicily for 4 years. And so we lived there. So I wouldn't say it's like travel specific because we were living there, but we did travel a lot while we lived there. So I would say Sicily is very important to me, not just because it was a very formative time and 4 years living outside of your native country, it changes you. But photography wise, that's where I really got into photography. I started doing photography before I moved there, but I actually learned how to do photography. I learned what an f-stop was. I learned how to control my camera. I learned so much as a photographer while I was there. And so that holds a really special place in my heart. And all I really want to do right now is go back and recapture so many of those pictures that I captured. I was learning how to take pictures because I know I could do them better now. Plus the gear I have, the modern gear versus what I was shooting back in 2006 to 2010, so different.
Yeah, that would
That's
be such a cool thing to do the before and after. Yeah,
exactly.
you go to the same spot and then you can compare the photos that you took in 2010 or 11 versus the
Mhm.
photos that you take now because your equipment has improved, technology has changed, and then you'll be able to see the reproduction of both, which would be
Yep.
so interesting. Yeah, this has been so fun, Angela, listening to you and talking to you. And I've been making mental notes myself because I am an avid traveler and I stopped carrying a camera several years ago. So now I just depend on my phone.
Okay.
And I do have gazillion photos and video clips. And of course, for my work, also, it's important to keep capturing places that I go to and also things that I see and experiences that I would like one to have for my personal memory and two also that I can share as a part of my podcast. So, yeah, no, so I've picked up a lot of tips from you as well today.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank
Like I
you.
said, two of my favorite things to talk about, photography and travel.
And travel, absolutely. Yeah. And travel is my absolute favorite thing to do. I lead a bit of a nomadic existence when it comes to travel.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Anything else that you would like to add for people who are photographers, maybe not professional, but would like to be professional? What would be like a starting point for them before they actually take the big leap and buy a fancy camera and equipment and all of that? So, what would
I
you
would say
recommend?
become friends with other photographers, and that's easier than it sounds. I would advocate strongly for joining your local camera club or multiple camera clubs. If you live in a big enough area to have different ones, visit different camera clubs. Each one's going to have its own vibe, it's going to have its own kind of focus on what the people in the group like to photograph. It's going to expose you to a lot of different types of photography and a lot of different styles. From there, you're going to learn, you're going to pick up things, you're going to try different genres, and what resonates with you is what's going to guide you forward. Plus, if you're considering upgrading from a cell phone to a mirrorless or some other larger camera, standalone camera, seeing what other people are shooting with, learning why they made those choices and what they're able to accomplish with that you can't accomplish with your phone is really going to guide that purchase. And I always like to say when somebody's looking at buying their first camera, if they have a friend who's a photographer, to base their purchase off of what they have. So if your friend shoots Canon, if you can afford a Canon and you can afford a similar model, maybe not the same level model they have, but something along those lines, try to get that. And if your friend is really nice and generous, they might even let you borrow lenses. So having somebody who knows the system or a similar system to what you're shooting with can really help guide you as you learn. That is a really fundamental way of how I learned photography. That is also something that I did when I lived in Sicily. Is on base, we started a camera club, and that's where I learned truly how to use my camera. Like I could point it and shoot pictures, to learn about composition, to learn about the settings in my camera, what that meant. Because the first time I read through my camera manual, it was like reading Greek.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know what all these words meant. But being able to go through and practice it and learn with a group of people. The other thing is a lot of community colleges also have really good photography programs. So if you're looking to go that route, if you don't want to get into like social clubs, your local community college may have some good courses as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
with other people. I think that's huge.
Yeah. And also, I think your app is another very useful tool. What, like, if people want to reach out to you, a website, your social media handle, if you could just mention those before we end the conversation.
So they can, if they want to just do a web search for Mylio Photos, Mylio Photos, that's going to take you to our app, or you can go to mylio.com, Mylio.com. If you want to find me, you can find me in the Mylio community all the time, which is at community.mylio.com. Or if you want to find me personally, take a look at my website. My website is angelaandrieux.com. There's links to all my social media there. Would love if you guys would follow me on Instagram and YouTube and all of that. And yeah, I'll make sure to send you all the links, and you can put those into the show notes as well.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much, Angela. I really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, and I'm sure you're looking forward to your, as you mentioned, your trip to Scotland and your other couple of trips that are coming up. So I'm sure we're going to get to see a lot of gorgeous photos once you're done with, especially Scotland. I think I'd be
Yes,
really interested to see what you're able to capture when you're there. So, yeah,
me too.
thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation. Thank you, Angela. You have a great day.